Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We're live in the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have across me here, Sir Marco Robinson. What is up, sir? How are you, man?
I'm great. How are you doing, bro?
I'm doing incredibly well. So where are you based out of right now? Where am I contacting you from?
So I'm in Manchester, England.
Very, very cool. So with Sir Marco, there's so many different layers. So we're going to let the conversation flow, and wherever we go and wherever it takes us, let's just flow with it. So the first thing I always do with our audience is give an understanding of what you're currently doing, what you're currently up to. Then we'll let the conversation flow. So where are you currently in your life, and what have you been up to? And I know you're doing movies and other stuff. So give me a little rundown. And obviously you have a big project that is out right now, Legacy of Lives. We'll talk about that, lives and all that stuff. So what are you up to in your life, and what are you currently up to doing?
What I'm currently doing is celebrating my 53rd birthday next month.
Very good.
So that's good. I'm still alive to tell the tales I tell. And right now my focus is making films, feature films. And also I am a business consultant. So I basically, I wouldn't say coach, consult people on how to take the business to the next level as a solopreneur, as a scalapreneur, online, offline, whatever you want to do, because I've done all that myself.
So let's dive into the movie industry. When did you get into the movie industry? Like, were you doing it as actor? When did you get into actually producing or directing movies and all that stuff? Give me your little history on that aspect of your life.
So Legacy of Lies was, I'd always wanted to be an actor and in film since I was 6 years old. I was the boy at the back of the classroom looking out the window. I broke my glasses today, so never mind. I was looking out the window pretending to be James Bond because my imagination was very active as a kid, and it still is, because my home life was very traumatic, very dramatic, very a lot of scarcity going on. So for me, it was, my escape was to go in my imagination, because there everything happened for me. It was good. It was like everything was possible, So, a lot of years went by until I got into film, because a lot of things happened and I never got really started, never got around to it. But one day, about 7 years ago, I said to myself, I want to make a film. And the way that I work is that if I'm going to do something, I want to do it big. I want it to be everywhere. I want it to be the best. I want the story to be fantastic. So what I did is I met someone on Facebook. I'd known her about 3-4 years, and we wrote a script together about an adventure. And I gave her $25,000, and she disappeared with the money. I never saw her again. So that was strike one on the film, right?
Yeah.
So when I was making this film with her, I met another actor called Victor Sola. He was a Spanish guy, and his best friend was a guy called Adrian Ball, who ended up being the director of Legacy of Lies. And he said, listen, come and meet Adrian. He lives in Holland. He's a great guy. And Adrian had made a lot of films, short films, MTV, award-winning stuff, independent stuff. So we went to see him, spent a lot of time with him. And we had this script called Truth 99, which was based on how the Russians bombed a building in Kiev and killed 300 families. It's based on a true story, because his wife was Ukrainian. So she'd lost someone in that bombing. So we started writing the script. We did a lot of PR. We put about 50 grand into promoting it. And then one day Adrian called me. He said, Marco, he's sitting down. I said, why? What's wrong? He said, you need to sit down, and you need to sit down now. I said, okay, what's wrong? He said, your picture, your Facebook, your Instagram is all over Russian national news TV to 100 million viewers. And they're saying that you're a crazy guy going after the Russians, especially the Putin. And they'd circled my comments about the film. And give me a
timeline. When was this timeline?
This was about 2016.
Okay, interesting. Okay, this took a different direction I thought it would be. That's
well, look, I'm telling you the true story because it's fascinating.
It's awesome. Yeah.
So I'm like sitting down, and for the first time in my life, I'm truly scared. And I didn't believe it So I got the newsreel sent over to me and translated. And it was worse than what I thought. I mean, literally, they picked every post I had on my social media, and it was going to millions of people. And my kid said, "Dad, don't make the film. It was too dangerous." So I had to think about it. Now, at the same time, this beautiful Russian woman was talking to me on my Instagram for nearly a year, right? Not completely disconnected to the film. And I was single at the time. And she said, can I come and see you? I said, yeah, come and see. Now, at the time I was living in Malaysia. So she came to see me and stayed with me. And the third day, while we were in bed, you know, having a good time, she said, I don't think you should make that film. And I said, why would you say that? What's it got to do with you? She says, because I'm not who I said I was. I'm actually a Russian FSB agent, and your phones are being tapped in your office. Your personal phone's being tapped. And if you make that film, I can't guarantee you're going to live. So I'm like, this is not happening to me, right? This is only supposed to happen in movies, right?
Yeah.
So I'm again completely shocked by this. And sure enough, the phones were tapped. We had it all checked out. It was genuine. And she said to me, she said, listen, I sell weapons all over the world. My best-selling weapon is cyanide, and Putin is my cousin. Showed me pictures. So we stopped the project. We stopped the film. Strike two, right? So 6 months we took off. I said, 6 months after that, I said, right, listen, we're not stopping this. We're going to make a film. So we rewrote another film, fictional spy thriller based loosely on the story, but it was fictional, called Legacy of Lies. So we put $12,000 into making the trailer. We submitted it to the Ukraine Film Foundation, and we won a $1 million grant to make the film. We won a $1 million grant to make the film based on the quality of the trailer, which was pretty awesome. But to access the $1 million grant, we had to get a lead actor of influence to de-risk the film and sell the film internationally. So then we had another problem, because we couldn't find an actor that was less than $5 million to $10 million, and we couldn't find one that was free for the next 5 years. So even if we had the money, we couldn't get them. It was scheduled. Yeah. So we waited for 2 years, and eventually a guy called Scott Adkins dropped out of a film. You'll know Scott because you supply martial arts stuff, right?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, huge in the martial art film world.
So he's probably the top guy in the martial art action film world right now.
100%, yeah.
And he dropped out of the film. He said, listen, love the script, love everything. And he said, let's do it. So we signed him on, had to find 100,000 to put in escrow before we started filming. Of course, and I didn't know anything about film financing, acting, nothing whatsoever. So got him to find 100 grand, put it in escrow, started filming it in May 2019 in Kiev. And then halfway through filming, we ran out of money. So I thought, what we're going to do now? So, so at the time, Cannes Film Festival was on at that time. So we borrowed a friend of a friend's yacht. We cut a new trailer. We flew to Cannes. We invited as many people as we could in the film industry, and we sold 6 regions for $300,000 each pre-sale. So we raised another 1.8 million, went back to Kiev, finished making the film, did all the editing. In January 2020, we tried to release the film in 10,000 cinemas, but the virus came.
Talk about obstacles, huh?
Oof. So what do? We had no choice. We released it on Amazon Prime in the States in July that year, 2020. Yeah. And then we just held it back. And in February this year, Netflix bought the rights for the UK and Europe. And it trended at number 4 on Netflix for like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was literally jumping up and down like you wouldn't believe when that happened.
That's your journey. That's the journey.
That was a hell of a journey.
Oh, what a question. So through this whole process, obviously you learned a lot.
Yes.
And it's yeah, I mean, to come out with it, obviously a film that did that well on Netflix and everything like that. So obviously there was a lot put into it. Where's your mindset with going forward in the industry now? and understanding the industry. Are you going to continue with making films now?
Yeah, well, you know, what I learned is that the film industry is shrouded in secrecy.
Even like something simple, like you said, like actors are 5 years out, big actors, like that's something I guess the world won't even know, which is pretty crazy.
They don't know
that ahead in advance.
You also don't know what Netflix pays you for rights. You don't know the streaming royalties. It's not transparent at all.
No.
So I found that it's very secret, and I found that it's just a pain in the arse to finance a film.
Yeah.
So basically, I've now hacked my way into the film industry and found a way to finance film. So I can finance a film up to 90% of the budget, from 5 million to 20 million. So I've basically found a way to do it, because if I was an actor at my age, I'm 53 next month. If I'm an actor, I'm going to castings all the time, but it takes a long time, right? So why don't I write my own movies and finance them and just do it myself? So that's what I found is the best way to determine your own fate.
Yeah, well, it's that entrepreneurial mindset too, right? You control yourself, right? So which I love that mindset too. You were knighted.
Yeah.
When did that happen? What year did that happen, and how did that all come about and all that stuff? I think it's such an amazing accomplishment. So how did that all come about?
Well, in 2014, I was in Malaysia, as I said before, and my friend said to me, listen, there are 350,000 blind people in Malaysia, but they're not allowed to take guide dogs into public areas. So basically, they're imprisoned in their own homes. So they have to wait until a family comes to the house and takes them out. Yeah. Like, you know, being blind is one of the most hugest disabilities there is. Yeah. But can you imagine not being able to have that freedom where you can't move? And when I heard about this, I was like, this is tragic. And I was saying, well, why is that? And Malaysia is a Muslim country, and they had a stigma towards dogs in public places. And in countries that are not as first world as USA, Canada, and places like that, the thinking is very religious. It's very dogma, ironically, you know. Yeah. So I thought, right, well, that's not right, you know. Now, I didn't go on this journey to get a knighthood. I had no idea that was going to happen. I did it to make a difference.
Yeah.
So I found a guide dog in China that cost $15,000 to bring into the country. Got this guide dog, trained the blind guy to use the guide dog. And then we started making a film called Are You Blind? And then we filmed this man and the guide dog going into public transport, taxis, buses, trains, being refused. Going into shopping malls, being refused. Until eventually, we just kept going back into the shopping malls, and they got more and more kind of violent, and eventually we were taken at gunpoint to the office. But we were filming this. They didn't know that. So we made this film. It was 20 minutes long. We put it on Facebook. We don't want to put it on YouTube because we know we'd get a lot more comments going on Facebook. So we put it on YouTube, and within a week, I have 15 million hits. And the blind community went absolutely, they went outright. There's a huge outcry to the travesty and the injustice that was going on. And then it went on YouTube as well. It just went viral everywhere. And then a week after that, the Malaysian royal family contacted me and said, listen, we've heard about you've made this film. Now, I was a bit worried at this time because I'm not in their country. I'm a foreigner. And I'm exposing something that is embarrassing to them, you know. And they said, we need to meet you. And I was still a bit scared. So I said, listen, we don't want to meet you in your palace. I'd meet you in a neutral place. Yeah. So anyway, they met me and, you know, they calmed me down and said, listen, Mr. Robinson, jokingly, we don't know whether to get rid of you or give you a knighthood because you've embarrassed us so much. And we didn't understand how wrong it was that these people were not letting blind people into public places. Yeah. So I said, well, I'd rather have the knighthood than, you know, the other thing. So anyway, they knighted me for that. And Malaysia's a Commonwealth country, so it's, you know, it's an official thing. So that's how that happened. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing story. When did you move to Malaysia, and what brought you there?
Right. Well, I moved to Malaysia in 1997. And the reason I went to such an obtuse place from where I was is because I was being headhunted by lots of companies in that time in lots of countries. I got so many offers because I'd taken my own personal sales achievements into an industry where I broke the records.
What
So
industry was that?
this is the timeshare industry,
Okay.
vacation ownership industry, membership sales industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd done really well. And Malaysia was an incredible offer of actually running a public company that was a property company that wanted to go into timeshare because they had 25 hotels. So it was a great opportunity to go into a new region with a beginning industry rather than a mature industry. So I went there, and I went with my 6-month-old daughter and my wife at the time. And then 3 months after I went, the Asian economic crisis happened and they couldn't pay me. And this was a huge economic crisis, worse than you're seeing now, because George Soros basically devalued all the currencies. And the company ran out of money. They couldn't pay because no one was buying any property anymore because everyone was afraid. So that was a pivot, because I decided, well, do I go back, or do I find a way to make it work? So I decided to stay, and I decided to innovate the product. So instead of selling a week's timeshare, I would sell it based on a points value. So you could go and stay in a resort for one day. So it made it affordable to everybody. So I changed all the membership, and I eventually hired 3,000 salespeople, 2,000 telemarketers, and completely did 2 billion in 3 years in sales. Yeah,
that is incredible. There's something you dove into. I'm going everywhere with this story because there's so many places I want to go with it. Let's talk about your childhood.
Yeah.
Give me an understanding of where you're brought up, how many siblings you had, and an understanding of your childhood, and where and how it kind of molded who you are as a man today.
So when I was 2 years old, my mum left my dad. He was a gambler. I mean, literally, he was an addict. And my earliest memory as a baby is walking around the room on newspapers and cigar smoke and smelly feet. And then I realized he was studying the form of horse racing every weekend. That's what he was doing, right? But it was the expense of my mum's wages. You know, he rang up debts all over town. So she left him, and when she went to move in with her mum and a stepfather in the north of England, which was very cold. And it was January. Now, what I didn't know, because my mum was 23 at the time, but what I didn't know was that since she was 4, she'd been sexually abused by a stepfather for many years. So for her to go back to that doorstep was a terrifying ordeal for her. And she only told me this when she was 73. She kept it secret. Because when she told people at that time, her family, they didn't believe her. And her siblings, because the siblings, it was a natural father, defended him. So she couldn't really do anything about it. So she's at this doorstep with me, 23, I'm 2. And the stepfather says on the doorstep, it's either me or them, to my grandma. And my grandma said, you can't stay. So we literally slept in the park for 3 nights and nearly died.
How old were you at that point?
I was two.
Oh.
She was 23. So eventually we got taken in by some friends, and we were transient. We were moving around a lot till I was about 10. I think I went to about 50 schools before I was even 10. And I was very small. I had bright ginger orange hair. I was very white. So I basically stuck out everywhere that I went. I tried to dye my hair and all kinds of shit, right? So, and I was bullied because what was going on at home for me was so painful. I just wanted to hide everywhere. I wasn't a confident kid. I was extremely shy. So she met my stepdad when I was about 9, and I thought he was going to be the end to all our problems. But he was a great guy, but on the inside of the house, he was very violent, and he physically abused my mum. So, as a kid, I saw being pushed down the stairs, beaten up, and it was just, as a 9-year-old kid, what do you do with that? You can't process it.
No.
So either I would run upstairs and sleep under the bed and cry myself to sleep, or I would run away. And then when the backstory came out, my mum told me that her stepdad put his hand on her breast when she was 12 years old and said, I didn't marry your mum for your mum, I married your mum to get to you. Can you imagine? Right? And when I heard about this, her stepdad was dead. And it's a good job he was dead, because he would not have got away with that. So, she held that in for 50 years. Now, going back to my childhood,
it's incredible. You never know people's stories.
It's wow, you know. And like you're saying, Jeff, I think it's important to really give the message out that you may think someone is looking miserable around you or not being themselves. You've no idea what they're going through. And people do not. I feel today people don't respect that enough.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. 100%. I apologize. So continue your story.
So anyway, going back to when I was a kid, I was bullied a lot until I got to the age of 15. And then I was in a garage with 20 boys, because I went to a boys' school, 20 boys punching me, kicking me. And then eventually I saw red. Didn't know what happened next, but the next thing I remember, I was running down the road, chasing 20 boys, going, come on! Is that the best you can do? Come on! Because I basically saw red and I fought back for the first time in my life. I decided to fight back. My adrenaline kicked in and that was it. And since that time, I've not been scared of bullies. So that was the first time in my life where I had validation that I actually was worth something as a human being. I had the beginning of self-esteem was starting. But before that, for 15 years, I had no self-esteem.
From there, where did you continue with school and I didn't ask you this. So you had your step siblings. Did you have any brothers and sisters from your first year? Nothing.
So only child. Yeah.
So when you're 15, you were still give me an understanding from there for the next gap, because how did your career start? Did you start in the work field? Did you start as an entrepreneur right off the bat? Like, give me your entrepreneurial journey as well.
So what happened is my mum left my stepdad when I was 15, that same year.
Okay.
And then she met the guy that she's still with now, which worked out. And that's a great story. She's been with him for 40 years, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to live with my stepdad, so I moved out. And I didn't want to go to school anymore. So I didn't have a high school diploma. I didn't have O levels and all that kind of stuff, right? And I didn't have much belief in myself, to be fair. So I just worked casual jobs. I mean, I got 4 casual jobs: stacking shelves in supermarkets, cleaning floors, driving around, delivering stuff, right? And I did that for like 5 years. And I wasn't really living anywhere. I was, again, transient. I was in parks, people's couches. I couldn't afford the rent to get the place on my own. So I got to the age of 21 and I was still in this crappy hometown. And someone, and that time I was working in a clothes shop. And the person I took the job from came back down from Manchester and said, listen, I've got this amazing opportunity. I think you'd be great. It's selling timeshare. I said, what's that? I had no idea what that was. And he showed me the money he was making, blah, blah, blah. And he said, it's commission only. I said, what? Commission only? And I was a bit like that. But I was in such a place of desperation and sadness that I thought, fuck it, I'm going to do this. So I just packed everything up. I got a spare room somewhere, a really, really cheap room somewhere. And then I started in this sales job. And remember, I was still a very shy boy. I'd not grown into a man yet. So selling timeshare to people that, if you didn't sell it, you don't get paid. It's kind of a lesson, a very harsh lesson to grow up, right? And I was the worst salesperson for 6 weeks, literally the worst the company had ever had. And they were going to fire me. And the boss said, listen, if you don't sell in a couple of days, Marco, we can't, you're going to have to go. So in that 6 weeks of doing that sales job, my internal narrative was a question where I was saying to myself, why are you such a loser? Why are you never good at anything? Why is it not working out? Why don't you go back to your hometown and be a fucking cleaner the rest of your life, right? When the boss said to me, you're going to lose this job, a lot of things went through my mind, but I was very clear in the fact that I didn't want to go back to that kind of scarcity that I've been having for 21 years. There's just no way. I'd rather die, right? So I changed the question in my mind to, How can I be successful? How can I be successful? I flipped the script completely. And it wasn't a book I read or anything like that. It wasn't a mentor. It was an intervention by my boss. And it was an intervention of pain. And you know, Tony Robbins says the two triggers in life that get you to do anything are desperation and inspiration. Everything in between that is a waste of time, called a comfort zone, right? Now, I didn't know that for years beyond that, but at that time, it was a trigger. Now, the day after I asked that question, I went to the office and the top salesperson approached me. Never done it before. I said, listen, Marco, I heard you're going to get fired if you don't sell. I'm really sorry to hear that, but I don't want you to leave. I think you can do this. And I want you to tell you that I used to be like you. I was really shy. I was homeless. I was a complete loser. And I said, there's no way you were like me. I said, yes, I was. I was like you. I was as bad as you, right? And then someone helped me out and I became the best. I said, why you want to help me? He said, because the person who helped me said, pay it forward. So I'm paying it forward. And I want to give you a book that I want you to go home and read. Don't tell anyone you're reading the book and don't finish reading it until you've got the message. Now, I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So I was starving for this book. I got home, read the book 8 times, right? Didn't go to sleep. Sprinted to the office 5 miles away. Got to the office, wet through with sweat. They sent me home because it was too sweaty, right? To go and get changed, then go back again to the office, right? And then my first prospects came in, and ironically, he was blind and she was blind, and they had a guide dog. Funny how things work out in life, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this blind couple sat down, and I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, they can't even see the timeshare. They can't even see me. How am I going to sell them that, you know? But something had shifted in me internally. There was an internal shift, and I felt electricity running. I mean, I had goosebumps. My hairs were standing up on end because it's the first time I believed in myself. I thought, right, this is an opportunity. So I said to them, you're going to sit there for 5 hours. You're going to love this. You're going to get your credit card out. You're going to spend $10,000 and you're going to be a big hug at the end. That's the first time I've ever said that. And they said, no, we're not. We're going to go, blah, blah, blah. And they gave me every objection. They wanted to leave for like hours.
Yeah.
At the end of 6 hours, I said, Marco, you were right. There's my credit card. We'd love to buy this. They got up and they gave me a big hug. And I was like, oh my God. It was the first success I ever had in my life. So I'm discombobulated as hell, right? Yeah. Thinking, is this just happened to me? And my first response was, why did you buy from me? Because no one had bought from me before.
You asked that?
I asked that.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't ask that as a salesperson, right? But that's what I asked because I was so, wow, you know. And they said, this is your first sale? I said, yeah, this is my first sale. And they couldn't believe it. They said, listen, the reason we bought from you is because you transferred your belief to us. Although we couldn't see you, we believed you. And that was the biggest lesson I had in my life. That was the biggest pivot internally I ever had. And since that day, I've never been back to the scarcity that I had before.
How valuable, and I want to ask you this because this is something I talk about quite a bit. I mean, I don't know how it is in Europe, but with our school system in North America, especially in Canada, that I could protest to, the 3 skills that I think everybody should learn through high school or growing up are never taught.
Yeah.
Which is sales, public speaking, and networking.
Yeah.
3 tools that no matter what, if you're taught, you're going to be successful the rest of your life, whether you work for somebody or you're self-employed. Sales obviously became a huge part of who you were for a good amount of years until this day. Obviously, you're still selling yourself with the movies and you're constantly selling yourself. How do you understand now the importance of sales, and how are sales a big part of who you are right now? Like how important is sales, and what does sales mean to you as a salesperson?
I think sales has been stigmatized by society incredibly. And I think that's part of the reason it's not taught in schools, because it's kind of a shame thing. Oh, you don't want to do sales. It's like the worst kind of thing you do, but actually sales is, like you said, it's at the top of the tree in skills. And you know, you've got to understand that sales is not what I came to understand is that a lot of the time I kind of had a thing that it wasn't moral what I was doing. But then I came to terms with that and said, right, well, if I believe in what I do, surely by sharing that information with a customer, I'm serving them because it would benefit them. And that's what sales is.
Yeah.
So when I came to terms with that, then I realized that sales is the number one. And sales is the same as marketing. You know, let's make no mistake here. It's the same thing. Marketing is just strategy and tactics. Sales is communication. It's the same thing. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Jeff. It is the absolutely number one asset that you need to be successful in life. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, like whether you're selling yourself to your partner, selling yourself to a job, an interview, you're constantly selling yourself 24/7. And it's such a skill that I think a lot of people don't understand. Is just even just the commonality, the rapport of talking to somebody. There's so many benefits of it, right, that we can utilize every single day in our general lives. So going forward, I saw you saw a recognition on your side, Entrepreneur of the Year. Where did that come through? Was that through Malaysia, through the Entrepreneur?
That was Ernst & Young in Malaysia. So what happened there is in 2008.
Yeah.
So now we've kind of left the timeshare world. I only spent 3 years in that company.
Yeah.
Because three things happened that were quite bad that changed the way I directed myself. So I had a heart attack at 31. So I was giving a lecture in the office and I collapsed because I was literally so stressed out. And then I recovered from that. It wasn't a major one, it was a minor one, but it was a huge warning to me.
Yeah. At a young age too.
Yeah, especially my age, because I was overweight. I was working 18, 19 hours a day, Jeff, and I was obsessed with success. Obsessed to a degree where a lot of things, you know, other things kind of went by the wayside. And I found out my wife was having an affair with my best friend 3 months after the heart attack, which is more painful than the heart attack because I'd known each one of them for 10 years. So it was like a double betrayal. And that took a long time to overcome. In fact, I never overcame that in terms of trusting her. Although I went back to her because she wanted me to go back because, you know, I want to go back because of the children. I had 2 children and they didn't have a dad. It was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. And I stayed too long in that marriage. And in 2008, I left her. It was one of the best things I did. It was not because she's not a bad person, because we're going in different directions. So if I want to take a risk, she wouldn't take a risk. And I was being held back all the time. And when they had an affair, a few months after that, I lost most of my money on the stock market that I made in that company. So basically I had to reset financially, but I had experience. So, and one of the things I decided to do was not to ever have a boss again. Even though I had no money, no way I'm going to have a boss again. There's just no way someone else is going to determine what I do on my day. So I started a little bit of consulting work, did training, did motivational events with thousands of people. And in 2008, I was struggling because I wasn't able to do those events. I wasn't able to make as much money. I was working 3 projects, but they weren't paying me very well. My kids were in private school, which was costing me a bomb. And she wouldn't take them out of private school. So I had to work harder. Yeah. So I came to another question. I said, right, how can I make $1 million this year? I kept asking it. And the first thing I did is I started writing my first book. Subconsciously, that's what came to me.
Yeah.
So I started writing this book based on my sales experience, and it was called Close the Deal and Suddenly Grow Rich. I finished it in 6 months and edited it, and it went to number 1. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm signing the book, doing book signings in Borders bookstores all over. And I'm going, is this really happening to me? But the problem was the book's not going to drive the dollars. You know that.
Yeah.
It's a great lead magnet, but it's not going to bring the dollars in.
Yeah.
So how can I make that $1 million? Now, coming from the timeshare and hotel industry, I knew a lot of people. So I thought, what if I could get access to free hotel rooms or very cheap hotel rooms? And in exchange, I would send people to those hotels. He would buy lunch and eat there and stuff like that. And it was after the subprime, so everyone was struggling like hell.
Yeah.
So I managed to get some rooms for free, and I packaged them into a voucher, which I made a little design for, and I called it a vacation incentive. And my strap line was, when people asked me what I did, I said, I supply $2,000 holidays from $50 and help your sales increase by 20% at least. And I got meetings going on like crazy. And my first sale, I sold 10,000 vouchers at $50 each, $500,000 to an electrical retailer with 100 stores. Buy a TV, get a free holiday. And I made that sale on Christmas Day in 2008. And the following year, I made 12 million in that business.
Interesting. I love the mindset. I mean, it's a creative entrepreneurial drive, right?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, because I had no office.
And nobody would even like. I love that. I mean, I've seen cash lines like that, and it's when you actually break down how you put it together is creative. It's genius in a way. I love it.
Yeah, and I had no staff, no office. I had a laptop, and I was working from a burger cafe every day. And I'd put $10 ads because Facebook wasn't big then. So I'd put $10 ads in the newspaper, like line ads, saying, because I also did a business opportunity for entrepreneurs, come in and get like 100 vacation vouchers, sell them for $50 and profit like 50 grand. And I had people meeting me in the burger store, signing up for $2,000. And it just grew. And that was an amazing thing. And that's what I won Entrepreneur of the Year for.
There's something I want to unpack there. You had just mentioned. And I think it's very valid because a lot of people, this is something I actually talked about recently in a conversation. People get married, and when you're dating, you're doing everything to keep that relationship romantic and fun. And then you get married and things slow down, but you're still going at it. Once you have kids, life, business, work, it becomes a routine.
Yeah.
And take away what happened with the affair with your wife, but just in general, a lot of people stay in a marriage for comfort.
Yes, they do.
And they're in a marriage way too long because of children, thinking they're trying to do something good for the children, but they're miserable, they're unhappy. They come home and they throw their bag down, and the children see that negativity, that energy, that low vibration. And I think it's such a horrible thing. What is your recommendation for that? Because I think you've been through it. Well, you could probably help people understand that a little bit better.
Well, Jeff, you explained it better than me, because that's exactly what happened to me. Yeah. I was coming home with resentment for her for 5 years. Resentment that she pushed me into putting the kids into private school. Resentment that I had to do 4 jobs. Resentment that financially wasn't enough, right? And we had a maid in Malaysia. She wouldn't get rid of the maid. So many things, and that pain was so painful. I mean, the only good thing that happened in those 5 years was I met a woman from Taiwan, because I was doing a contract in Taiwan, and she saved my life. I mean, if it wasn't for her, we had an affair, because my marriage I was emotionally divorced. I wasn't in that marriage anymore. I couldn't trust that person anymore. And this person came along because I asked a question. I need someone that's on my wavelength. Again, I asked a question. And I have to really put this to your audience, Jeff, that it is the power of your questions and you get answers from. And I believe in God. I am a God believer. I'm not religious, but Jesus Christ, I believe in God. Because that guy saved me countless times. So yes, and you're absolutely right. And I would advise anyone that's listening to this, if they're in a marriage that's not where it should be, because a marriage is supposed to be happy. It's supposed to be a team. You're there for each other. I never had that in my marriage. You know, I remember we had to move to a smaller house because financially we couldn't afford the bigger house. So we went to look at the smaller house. It was a beautiful house. And all I remember was her crying in the car saying, we shouldn't have to move to a smaller house. Now, that is not support. That is,
At all.
that's just horrible.
Yeah.
And at that moment, when she did that in that car, I knew I had to get out of that marriage pretty quickly. And to be honest with you, the divorce was the best day of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not against marriage, Jeff. I love marriage. I think it's a great thing.
I think it comes down to the word, and it's something I try to be every day, is authentic. And I think a lot of people, especially with social media nowadays, are not authentic to who they are.
No, they're not.
They try to live lives that they should not be living.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even on Clubhouse, Jeff.
Okay, let's talk. Say that, and I'm going to continue with that. I'm going to go with someone. Go. Say it.
Well, even on Clubhouse, there are so many phonies with so many phony stories that it's just crap. You know,
I jumped on Clubhouse in December when it first started. I got invited. I went through January. I went through for about a month where I was pretty active on it. Not crazy. I would block in times. Now I'm on Clubhouse once a week. I run my own room. It's Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern, and it's called Dad Talk. And all it is open conversation for dads. And I turn off my alerts, and I will not look at Clubhouse anymore because I find it's full of shit. Everybody's a millionaire. Everybody's a professional. Everybody's an expert. And I'm sitting there. I was sitting in rooms. I'm like, and listen to all these guys talk, and they're all coaches, and it's a coach selling a coach, trying to sell a coach, trying to become a coach.
Exactly. Yeah.
Rabbit tail chase. And I'm sitting there. I'm like I've been doing this for 25 plus years, and these guys have been doing it for a year, and they're all professionals. And what asses? Like, what have you built? And then I would see a lot of individuals that I know on a personal level, where they're putting on their. Like, I had one guy. He ran 2 small landscaping companies, and I knew everything about him. But on his profile, and I'm not going to name him, but on his profile, he says, exited a $2 billion company. I'm like, $2 billion company? What the fuck are you talking about? And it's just constant that.
Yeah.
Constantly that. It's just, it was just a platform for people to lie. And I can't deal with that, right? So I just kind of avoid it as much as I possibly can, because it's just a platform for bullshit after bullshit.
It is. And, you know, I started getting blocked from rooms, and I'm thinking,
because you're calling people out.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't calling them out. They were calling themselves out because I was speaking, and they weren't able to speak. I mean, I went to there's another person that was very toxic on there. I'm not going to name them. What, you know, it's to do with an animal called the fox and the hound, right?
Yeah.
So they brought me up to interview me for Legacy of Lies, and they tried to discredit my bio. And I said, listen, you brought me here for an interview. If you want to try and discredit me, I'm out of here, right? Interview me or fuck off, basically, right? And there was 1,000 people in the room. And they just bring people like me and you and try to bring us down so they can look like they're the fucking hero, right? And they're the champion. And there's too much of this going on. It's bullying at an extreme level. So, you know, I go on Clubhouse. I haven't been on for 2 weeks, Jeff. I've not been on there.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great for bringing leads in if you're doing webinars and stuff like that. But you don't have to go in every room for, like, a friend of mine said, listen, Marco, if you're an entrepreneur and you're spending 14 hours on Clubhouse every day, you're not an entrepreneur.
No.
Do you get what I mean?
Unless that is your actual full-time business. But I mean, if I know there's a few guys that go on there and they're actually turning that into their business, where they're generating leads and making commission, driving those leads to other businesses. So I get that aspect of it, but it's very draining, man. Like I said, I commit to 1 hour a week, and it's nothing but just dads talking and communicating and hanging out kind of thing. So getting to that topic, you have 2 children?
Yes.
How old are they?
24 and 21.
They're adults now.
They're adults.
Yeah. How has that impacted or made you a man? Let's talk about that as a dad.
Well, I never actually wanted to be a dad in the first place, to be frank. Yeah. My wife kind of pressured me, said, I want children, I'm not going to get married, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I don't regret having them, and they're amazing people. And, you know, because I'm a big kid myself, the way that I cope, the way that I got through that was being the biggest kid with them. and I had the time of my life with them. Anytime I was with them, it was magical, because there was always something to explore. There was always some game to play. You know, I remember playing PlayStation with my daughter, Harry Potter, for like hours every day. You know, taking my son slot car racing, he was the champion. So taking my son go-karting, he became the third in the world championship. You know, all those kind of journeys with your kids is magical. You can't, you know.
It's building, I call it building memories. And
They
those
are
memories, and those memories, whether they're far and few between or consistent, those memories are what they are going to be telling their children about and their grandchildren about one day. So I think a lot of people think about being a dad as being an educator or being an authority figure or being a leader. I think building memories is so much more important.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't say at that level, but I mean, I'm the type where it's all about building memories. Like I do certain things with my kids where I call it, I do it 6 times a year for each kid. So every 8 weeks, I'll take one of my kids separately, and we spend the day, whatever they want to do. Exactly what you said. You want to go go-karting, you want to go biking, whatever you want to do. I pull them out of school, and we do that for the whole day. My daughter wants to do nails, want to go have lunch, whatever you want to do. And I do that every 8 weeks, and it's on the calendar, and they kind of will look forward to it. It's almost like a birthday 6 times a year for them. And even though I'm with them every day, but that's and I separate them. So it's their individual memory building. So it's kind of building a memory bank. So one day that I'm not here, they're going to always have those memories and those times when, hey, dad did this with me, or dad went go-karting with me, or dad. I think that's so special. I think it's so special to be able to build those memories, because nothing can take those memories away. You can buy a gift for them. You can buy the nicest presents. They're going to forget about it after 2 months or a month.
True. Absolutely true. Yeah.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Resurrection.
Okay. Interesting. That's very good. And in a few words, if something were to happen to you today, how would you want to be remembered or described by your loved ones and your closest friends? Almost like a living eulogy.
The legacy, I think, would be anything you want can be achieved. You've just got to want it, and you've got to believe it. I think, and you know, I've demonstrated that through my life. So I've done so many different. See, people look at me and go, "What do you actually do, Mark? There's so many things going on." But you see, I've always been heart-centered. I've always done things that I love.
Passion.
Yeah. So yeah, it's eclectic. Making a movie is eclectic to being an entrepreneur. You know, making a film, philanthropy is not the same as doing business in a small business. So there's so many different things that I've done, but I've enjoyed everything. And I'm very much a project-based person. Yeah. Give me a project, give me a deadline. You're the same.
I'm the exact same. Exact. I mean, I've had a sports memorabilia business. I've had 2 gyms. I've had an events company. I've had a personal training business. I had a consulting business. I've had a martial art equipment business. I have properties, I have rentals, I write a book. Like, I'm everywhere, but everything has a purpose in that time for me.
Exactly.
When I was in there was a purpose and a love and a passion for that at that moment.
Yeah.
So I'm the same way. And I think it's a gift in a way. It's a gift because you have so many talents and you're not making. I always tell people, and this is something you hear all the time, is how many people are lie in their deathbed and have to live with so much regrets, have that regrets that they didn't really try the things they wanted to. Like, if you didn't go hard and make that movie, you would have regretted it later on in life. And whether it's been such a journey to get there, it was a crazy journey to get there, but that passion, that purpose of just, I'm gonna get this shit done, and that entrepreneurial drive, that hustle got you to where you want. And now whether you make 100 more movies or that was your only one, that fuel, that light, that thing that got you there is complete. You can't live with that regret because you gave it all you could to do it. So I appreciate it.
And I think the thing is, when you do a project that, you know, you're the same as me, because when you're in that moment, nothing else is important as that moment with that project. And you have to have that completion, like you said. So when I was doing that, I had no fucking idea what the fuck I was doing. Right? I was learned, and that's the way I've learned all my life, because I've never been academic. So, but I know how to ask questions. I know how to find the answers, and that is trusting yourself. It's a big deal. You know, trusting yourself is the first denominator where you actually said, right, let's start the project. Let's get the end in mind and let's do this shit, you know.
And I love
when
when you said there, ask questions. Let's talk. Let's dive into that for 2 seconds, because I think that's something a lot of people, even parents, don't teach their kids, is ask the right questions. Ask yourself the right questions and ask others the right questions, because it's so important, because you never know what is available once, what opportunity comes. And second off, you really never know what you truly want until you learn how to ask the questions. So where's your mindset on that?
Well, the mindset on that is, you know, if you want something, the only way you're going to get it is by finding the answers with the right question. So a lot of people don't really know what they want to do with their lives, Jeff. You know this. You've met many people. They don't have a clue what they want to do. And some people die not having a clue what they want to do. So the first thing is know what you want. You've got to know what you want. And with that movie, I wanted to make a Hollywood movie, but I wanted to make it my way. I wanted to do it outside of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it where I had all the involvement, and it was basically down to me to get it done. That's what I wanted to be known for. I didn't want to go in a film and say, oh, you know, I was just in a film. I wanted to do that thing. So I was very precise of the end in mind that I wanted. And I was also precise because I saw myself jumping up and down when that film was going to be in the top 10 of Netflix already before it happened.
You manifested in your head.
Yeah, that's very critical, that manifestation. Because if you don't have that manifestation in that mirror, that window, it's like you get in a car, but you don't know where you're going to go. Well, why get in the fucking car? You know?
It's so important where, I mean, you hear this all the time, Marco, is you have sometimes that one opportunity in your life. And the biggest issue is a lot of people are not prepared for that opportunity. And how you're not prepared is you haven't seen yourself succeed in that opportunity, which is the visualization or the manifestation of it. And if you're not prepared, you don't know how to react. And when you don't know how to react, sometimes that opportunity slips by and you'll never have that chance again. So I think that's so important. What you said is understanding that you were already at that level. You were already jumping up and down and celebrating it. So you knew when the opportunity came, what to take, because you knew the outcome already, which I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, I've even had a restaurant and I won Tatler's best restaurant. But
where was it?
That was in Malaysia.
Yeah.
It was called Naked Restaurant. I don't have it anymore, but
why was it called Naked Restaurant?
That's another story.
Go on forever here. Go on. Let's talk about that quickly. Go.
Okay, quickly. So I was in a relationship with a girl, the only girl really that I was very deeply in love with. And we said, Malaysian girl, we said, right, let's open a restaurant. Yeah. And 6 months after that happened, she left me, and I was devastated. It broke my heart into a million pieces. So, and I went into a big retreat emotionally and physically. I didn't want to see anybody. And I was really bad mentally, a lot of mental health issues going on. Yeah. So anyway, my two best friends came to me and said, listen, because I was 25 kilos overweight then. I'd gone back into the overweight part. This was in 2012.
Yeah.
And they said, listen, Marco, you can get a six-pack and you can be a model. I said, there's no way. I'm too fat, I'm too old, I'm too ginger. Because my best friend was a model for Calvin Klein, and the other best friend was a bodybuilding champion. And they got me through it. Said, listen, you can do it. So this is coming to the restaurant, don't worry. So I went in the gym for 6 months. I got a six-pack. And then I went to an audition to model underwear at 46 years old. Everyone else is 21.
Yeah.
Right? And there was 100 guys in this room, this audition. And the casting agent said, right, guys, welcome. She was looking around and says, right, you, the old guy in the middle. And the people looking, obviously that was me, right? Says, right, take your top off. So I took my top off. And then I said, right, you guys, everyone else take your top off. And then she said, in the middle of this room, I says, right, old guy, what's your name? I said, Marcus, right, you've got the job. You're the first I'm going to cast because you've got the best body in here. And the rest of you, look at this guy's body and ask him how the fuck he did it because you guys suck. So that was amazing, right? Amazing. And then my ex-girlfriend asked me to come back with her after all this happened. And I said, fuck off, right? And then I had this restaurant. I was paying for 2,000, I think I was paying about 5,000 US dollars a month for this restaurant lease that we hadn't done in a renovation yet. It was like a year. And I'm thinking, what the fuck am I going to do this restaurant? Yeah. So out of the blue, I said, right, how am I going to get lots of attention? How am I going to get this thing going? I said, fuck it, I'll call it Naked, right? And it was a Muslim country. So, you can't call it Naked. You cannot do that, you know? And I put the marketing massively on this Naked restaurant. And the first day, 1,000 people showed up. And it was fantastic. And I'd always wanted a restaurant. It was great fun. And I had it for 7 years. And COVID came and wasn't doing too well. So we decided to close it down. But for that journey, that 7-year journey was an amazing journey. It was the best thing because I lived I had a big apartment that was walking distance to the restaurant, had all my meals there prepared. It was a fantastic lifestyle. And I won Tatler's best restaurant.
You live such an interesting life.
Sorry?
You live such an amazing, interesting life. There's so many layers to it. It's like the sandwich keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. There's probably so many more. This is awesome.
The restaurant was, I thought, right, how can I make this internationally known? So I really got into the food, and we got the food so good that Tatler's awarded as best restaurant in 2015. I've never been I'm not a restaurateur, but because I wanted to do that, make a splash. Yeah. You know, that's what happened, and it was an amazing experience.
What is your model? Is that a one and done, or did you actually continue it after that, doing ads or anything?
Say that again. Sorry, Jeff.
The modeling aspect. Did you continue that, or was that a one and done, the modeling?
You mean the Naked brand?
No. So you went for a modeling edition, right?
Oh, the modeling
underwear. Yeah, the modeling.
Yeah, I did quite a bit of modeling. Yeah, I did.
You continued it, huh?
Yeah, I continued for Tom Ford. Did loads of things. Yeah. Yeah, really. And I'm not the best looking dude, mate, but
you have such a unique, impressive resume, which is pretty crazy.
But I decided to do that because I just wanted to do it. And the reason I did the modeling thing was to give the fuck you to the ex-girlfriend. That's the only reason I did it, Jeff. I didn't want to be a model. I just did it right. Okay, you've left me for another guy. Fuck you. I'm going to prove to you that you left the wrong guy. You know?
It's so crazy when somebody sits back and goes through their life and goes through their journey and their story. And you could sit back, even as a kid, and look at every little trigger point that made you who you are and made you succeed in what you are, and how important those little triggers were to get you to the next level, whatever it was. It's so crazy when you think about the stuff that happened in life. And at that moment, you're like, why is this happening to me? But they all have a positive effect if you could turn them around and turn them into a positive effect. And I think that's their biggest thing with most people, is they live in the past. I mean, I'm a strong believer, the minute it's past you, minute of time has gone by, you'll look back, you'll learn from it, you intake and get the fuck rid of it. And I think a lot of people will focus on their past for years and years and years and years, and that just drains you and kills you inside. And I like how you have always turned those into a positive, like adding gas to the fire and just really accelerating forward. Because I think it's such a, if anything, if anybody takes from this whole conversation, is if they could learn that aspect of you and how you succeeded every time you felt like you were down. I think it's such an important lesson for people to really, really intake and learn from. So I love that aspect of you. This conversation has been amazing. I appreciate you. Any last thoughts you want to leave with our audience?
I think really to embody what we've been talking about is just do what you want to fucking do, man. Okay. Stop putting yourself in the fucking way. You know, you want to open a restaurant, open a fucking restaurant. Want to be a model? Be a fucking model. You want to have your own martial arts fucking company? Do what Jeff does and fucking do it. Stop making excuses. Because I had no money, no education. All I had was the desire and the belief to do it. And that is worth a million more times than anything else, isn't it?
And I know your answer, but I'm going to let you say it. When's the right time to start?
The best time to start is absolutely now, in this moment, because this moment is a gift. It's a present.
How can our audience get a hold of you? follow
Go to
you.
go to my Instagram, Marco Robinson now. Follow me, chat with me, send me a DM. Would love to hear from you. I'm a very open, communicative person, and I answer every DM. And this is the thing, Jeff, I have to say here. What I don't understand is this. Well, I couldn't reply message. It has so many DMs. I'm so behind. I'm sorry. That is not ethical. It's not human, and it's not nice. Agreed?
1,000%. 1,000%. I appreciate you, brother. This has been a great conversation, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm looking forward to seeing your journey, man. I think there's so many different layers. I'm sure I'm gonna have you back on here again. And yeah, this is
I might start a podcast. I'll have you as my first guest. I don't know yet because I've got so much on my plate. It's like a big commitment for me. So we'll see. I don't know.
But it's a great tool for communication. And right now podcasting, it's so overwhelmed. They say there's like 1.8 million podcasts out there, but realistically, I would say only about 40 to 50% of those were actually active and really going strong. So there's still a lot of growth in there, and especially with your following, I think you can grow it pretty rapidly. Yeah, this is a great little idea. Yeah, and I'd be honored. I'd love to be on there. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jeff.